Wang. I'm the director of Office of Sponsored Programs. Today's session focuses on a few key points for PEIs in application and award management for NSF Training Grant in particular. Training grants in general to provide institutional research training opportunities at various levels from undergraduate student to postdoctoral fellows. The currently open opportunity at the NSF is a general training opportunity called Research Traineeship Program, or abbreviated as NRT, with the aim to support interdisciplinary and evidence-based traineeship that can help the graduate student to pursue a range of STEM careers, not just in research at the universities. Based on NRT's current request for proposals, there are two essential aspects. One is on research and science you propose. They support interdisciplinary convergency research in high priority areas. I believe you all know interdisciplinary research. Convergency research is a relatively new concept. NSF, in fact, has a dedicated website on convergence research, from its definition to examples of convergence research to the current programs and projects funded by NSF in this field. So I just quote NSF on the definition of convergent research. It is driven by a specific and compelling problem, whether that problem arises from deep scientific questions or pressing societal needs. In other words, both basic or fundamental research and user-inspired research can be convergency research. High priority areas is defined by NSF. In fact, in the request for proposal of NTR, they specify certain areas. And also NSF states that these areas change from time to time. So if you currently have an idea for a NSF training grant, but it's not ready to submit this year or in the near future, and you want to really know or anticipate the future priority areas, you may, in addition to read the call for proposals or request for proposals, you may have a look at the funding agency's strategic plan. Usually, funding agency will highlight their priorities in their strategic plan for the period of the strategic plan. For longer term, you may also have a look of the relevant science and policy report published by the major think tanks, especially national academies. In fact, convergence research is the topic of one report published by the National Academy of Science several years ago, and then taken by NSF. Another essential aspect is the proposal for a NRT must propose a comprehensive training model. In particular, the effective training from the grant should be institutionalized. In this sense, in addition to the research and project-related skills, transferable professional skills are quite important. This is also in line with the training grant's aim, is really to help the graduate student to have a career in STEM, in a range of STEM areas. So transferable professional skills are often called soft skills. When you propose this, you need to base on the resources available to you. For example, if you have a faculty member currently serve as a chief editor for a major journal in one of these priority areas, and then you can enlist that person in your training programs. Then you can have an element or module built into your training model on how to get published. So this is a soft skills and transferable for to many different kind of a career path. Similarly, how to get funded or get investment, and how to set up a startup. Again, for example, you have a faculty member establish several startup companies, and some of them running quite successfully. You may propose a internship for your trainees to work in those startup companies, a few weeks, work side by side with the founder. So that's a very good practical for entrepreneurship and management training. You may even propose an internship with a law office for patenting, or with a technology transfer office, for example, to learn the negotiation of licensing. Sometimes for applicants, especially for first time to apply a training grant, this kind of general description or requirement, this is required by the NRT. For them, it's quite hard to translate into a detailed training module or element into their proposed model. So for this, sometimes it's very helpful for applicant to read a few successful proposals to the same funding agency. Now this is possible because once the proposal is funded by a federal agency, all the information becomes public. So NSF has a database, publish all their grants with a title and a summary. If you find it's not detailed enough, you may also contact the program officers for this program to request certain proposals. They will send to you by law. The current NRT request for proposal has quite a number of requirements. I highlight 5 most relevant. First is the eligibility of the institution, may be the lead. Only institutions of higher education, in other words, universities, may be the lead. There are 2 tracks designed for based on the research level for different institutions. CSU, because the university is classified as R1 by the Carnegie classification, so it's actually applied through track 1 only. Track 1 is 3 million. Second requirement is the PI must be a faculty member with a quite broad expertise and experience, including project management. And the third requirement is, in addition to PI, because this grant is really at the institution level with many trainees, they require a management team led by the PI. The team members must have an evaluator and a project coordinator. Evaluator is to evaluate the training element efficiency and effectiveness, not only at the end of the grant, but also throughout the grant period. The coordinator is the main administrator for the training program. In addition, there must be an independent outside advisory committee. This is required, not optional. Finally, is somewhat unique to this training grant, a few others. One of the requirements is the program element funded by NRT should be extended to other trainees not directly supported by the grants, and also to non-trainees even, in order to benefit a larger population of STEM graduate students across an institution. So based on these requirements, the overall structure of the grant is quite clear. You have a number of trainees supported by grant working with individual faculty for the research project, but the overall management and administration is done by the brand of this training grant training program led by PI with a team advised by an advisory committee. The team required member include evaluator and coordinator, and based on the proposed training program, the PI may add other members, for example, faculty members, as the one of the basic elements of this grant is interdisciplinary or convergency, you must have a faculty member from different fields, obviously. So the representation of different fields with a different faculty member probably should be in the team. In addition, as I just mentioned, another requirement is to extend or institutionalize the effective elements. This would need the institution commitment. So maybe somebody from graduate school, maybe also quite necessary in the management team. Because this team is relatively large, and then the grant or program is at the institutional level, the management arrangement, especially on the leadership team here, responsible for the general management of the program, is quite important. You should detail the management arrangement in your proposal, particularly the mechanism of communication and discussion among all these people, and then the decision process, as well as the timeline and milestones. Sometimes PI would like to have a co-PI or more than one co-PI to help the PI for the management and leadership for the grants as well as the training program. If you propose a co-PI, you do need to pay a particular attention to co-PI's roles and responsibilities. Not a small number of people, they consider co-PI somewhat subordinate to a PI. In fact, this perhaps is not really the anticipation of funding agencies. Co-PI is also principal investigators. I blow up the P here. So they should be really have a major responsibilities for many major activities, and assessment play a major role in the general administration and management. In fact, another federal agency, National Institute of Health, NIH, they have lots of training grants, and then they do not use the term co-PI in any of their grants. If it's necessary for one grant with more than one person to serve as a PI, then they use the term PI with equal rights. So this is a more adequately show the responsibilities of PI and co-PI from the funding agency's perspective. NSF still allows you to use the co-PI, the term co-PI, but from their other parts of the request for proposal, you can see they're more or less in line with NIH. For example, for the same training grant NRT, there's a limit on how many proposals one person can submit. So if you already serve as a PI or co-PI in one proposal, you are not allowed to submit a second one as a PI or co-PI. So in this sense, they treat PI and co-PI as equal. So therefore, you do need to pay attention if you do want a co-PI. For a training grant, obviously the trainee selection and management is of among the most important things, and you should really propose quite detailed process and measures in your application. When you have a new grant and a new training opportunity at the beginning, usually it's not well known outside your own university. So a marketing strategy, it will be very good to really to communicate this opportunity in order to attract larger applications to the trainee position. Similarly, the targeted trainees profile, as well as the criteria and the process for selecting trainees should be actually proposed quite clearly. This will help the training grant to take off at the beginning in particular. And how to build up the mentor and mentee relationship is of one of the most important things for a training program, together with the management of ethics and conflicts. There should be some general communication events or approaches proposed. Finally, if you could propose individualized career development, for example, for different trainees, you have a way really to know their special career goals, as well as different training elements specified or individualized for this particular trainee. That will be a plus. So as I said, for training grant, the details for all this will be help your application. And finally, for grant application, budget is one most important parts. For NRT, the NSF Training Grants, the budget has two basic parts. One is the support of the trainee, practically everything related to trainees training, including their stipend, costs related to their education. In addition, you can budget additional costs for all trainees, not just this grant directly supported trainees, but for others not directly supported by this grant. Again, one of the requirements for this grant is really to extend the training element to directly grant supported trainees. So this kind of cost can also be budgeted, including their travel, grant supported or NRT grant supported travel, and then events costs will actually open to all these trainees. And finally, it's unique to this particular grant NRT because there's a meeting in Washington, DC organized by NSF. So it is required for one trainee to attend this meeting. The second part of the budget for NRT is the direct costs related to running the proposed training programs, including the salaries of all the personnel running the program, non-trainees cost of education or participation in this program, and also unique to NRT, the participating of in NRT meeting by the PI coordinator and the evaluator. These three people are required to participate in NRT meeting. And if necessary, equipment and software can be budgeted in. So for the trainees, I would like to particularly emphasize the 3 points here. First, the trainees are paid by stipend, not others like salary. This may have quite a number of implications. So you do need to remember they are paid by stipend. And secondly, their work is not tied to hours or efforts. So in other words, there's no need to track their effort. Within the CICU system, you don't need to put them in the electronic certification system. And finally, they're selected for and paid through institution. And finally, as a summary, for budget of NRT training grant, there are 2 parts. One is the support of trainees, particularly everything, including their tuition. For management, it is possible to have institutional allowance or cost of education account to be separate from the stipend account, because all these trainees are paid through the program. And the second part of the budget is the direct costs related to running the training programs. And the indirect costs may be charged based on the sponsor, and NSF allows this. So these are a few key points, especially on the management, including the budget and financial management. In general, for such a grant, training grant at the institution level with many trainees, faculty, even the management team has a number of people. So the more details you put on the management side, the more you show to the sponsor, you have carefully sort through all these possible issues, because management is of equal importance to your proposed research and science in this kind of grants. Of course, if the application is awarded, you may also use these proposed management methods and approaches directly for the running of the training programs. On the other hand, like in many cases, things may not work out exactly like you planned. So there are often issues in the post-award management, and if you do not resolve these issues, it may have a negative impact on the success of the training program. I list a few common ones here. Most frequently is really the conflicts between the trainee and the supervisor or mentee and the mentor. From the beginning, like to set the research direction, use a method or strategy for research to the final when you have the result to publish it, who should be authors and then the order of the authorship. And then there are others, including the general administration, the role of coordinators, and also the institutional support and commitment. Again, one of the requirements for NSF Training Grant is really to institutionalize the effective training elements supported or actually from this training program. So for this, obviously, institutional support and commitment is vital. There are some good practices on how to manage this issue or solve these issues, even at the federal level. For example, Office of Research Integrity, this is office under the Department of Health and Human Services, published a book called Introduction to Responsible Conduct of Research. A large part of this book is really on the good practice and recommendations, how to manage this issue. For example, here, as you can see from the table content of this book, mentor and trainee responsibilities, collaborative research, how to manage this, and also authorship and publication. If you want to know more, there are other resources. For example, NSF, obviously, the sponsor, has many detailed requirements for NRT as well as the general guidelines for proposals. And within CSU, we also have lots of resources, not only from our Office of Sponsored Programs, but from other offices. In general, I can say on behalf of all this, we're all here to support you and facilitate your success. With this, I would like to end my presentation and happy to answer your questions.